I think I'll take this time to talk about the Red Creek flood that I witnessed. My first camping trip. We're going out to the Verde River area of Arizona, which is, north of the Metro Phoenix area, up in the mountains there, an hour to hour and a half north of town. Kind of out of the way area. Not many people go that way. If they're going to northern Arizona, chances are they're going up to Flagstaff, Prescott, those areas. Anyway, it was going to be my first camping trip ever. I just got my 2008 Jeep Wrangler Unlimited Rubicon. It was like a week or 2 weeks old. Taking it off-road maybe a handful of times. And this is what got me into camping, along with off-roading. We go on these, weekend outings on like a Saturday or Sunday, and you had to go an hour and a half away from town, and you get on the trail and you're out there all day, and by the time you get home you're just exhausted. But I always want to explore more, but half the time was spent driving to and from the trail. So if you camp, you don't have to, you can take it a little bit more easy, or you can be out in the wilderness longer. And so I went with a group. I joined an off-roading group. My wife suggested I join this group or some sort of off-roading club. So I wasn't out there just exploring by myself, a novice new to off-roading. After off-roading it a few times with the group, a couple of the guys in the group were like, we're going on this camping trip this weekend. It's called Red Creek. So I have no idea where this trail is. I'm just going along with the group and whatever they think's best. And I'd learned to trust these guys. We'd gone on several trail runs together already at that point, and they all seem to know what they're doing. All of them were much more experienced and knowledgeable than I was. But actually somebody else was leading this run. A lot of the guys in the group didn't know where exactly this trail was. It wasn't in any of the guidebooks, but it goes along this creek bed, Red Creek, that eventually spills into the Verde River, which is a much larger river. It's nothing like the rivers in the eastern U.S., but pretty good, perennial river that's usually flowing. So very mountainous area north of Phoenix, and there was little to no cell service out there. So we get there, we're driving this trail. Most of it was dirt roads in the beginning, but eventually it turned into the creek area, and that's where it became like larger boulders, and there was water, trickling of water, but still water. And I was like, I had this fascination with driving through water because you see it on commercials and stuff, Jeep ads, or you just see it in places. And I thought it was so cool to take that Jeep on those trails, even though I hit bottom a lot and banged up the skid plates. I thought to myself, well, I'm committed. I'm doing this. I bought this thing to off-road. I want to use it for off-roading. I didn't get it to just drive it on the street the same way I could, the Jeep Patriot or any other car. And so I was actually not, it was only a few weeks. I still had the temporary paper license plates on it. And here I was just tearing this thing off at Red Creek. But that part of the trail goes all along the creek bed until you get to the Verde River, and that's where we were going to camp, kind of off to the side. So actually, let me back up a little bit. Earlier in that day, there was thunderstorms in the forecast. It was September 2007, and late July, August, and even into September is Arizona's monsoon season. So it wasn't out of the question that we would see some rain, but we weren't going to let that, hinder the operation. It was still a go. We were just going to play it by ear. If we run into rain, and the trails are flooded, we won't drive on them. And at that point, Red Creek wasn't a raging torrent. It was just a trickle, and it had been raining most of the day. So I don't think anyone thought anything of it. And we went down all the way to where it meets the Verde River, and where camp is a zebra. And it was just fine. So we get there, it was downpouring when we got to camp. And we even set up our tent in the pouring rain because it just seemed like it was never going to stop. And then, funny enough, right after me and my brother set it up in the pouring rain, it stopped raining. But surprisingly, the tent was fairly dry inside. Anyway, we hung out at that camp area, hung out around the river. It was very peaceful, serene, great area. I mean, you're in the Sonoran Desert. There's cactus around, but then you're in this lush green area where where Red Creek and the Verde River meet. But after a few hours, we're just hanging out, enjoying. Everyone's kind of off in their little groups, enjoying their time and stuff. And I remember somebody yelled out, "Water! Water!" And I remember just thinking, that's odd. I mean, because it hadn't been raining for a while. It'd been like a few hours since it rained. The sun was out. I was like, man, somebody really wants a bottle of water. But we were sitting right at the river, me and my brother. I remember this vividly. And I turn around and I just see this brown thing with it wasn't, I wouldn't say it's a wall of water, it was a bunch of just rapid water that was heading our way with a bunch of debris. And it was heading right towards, it was only like 40 feet from where we were because it curved right before it entered the...
It's called flooding. It's all dirty.
I see that muddy, mucky water just coming at us. I knew right away. I was like, oh, we got to get out of the way of this. And me and my brother, Len, were sitting right at the river where it flows into it. We were in launchers. We moved all our stuff just feet away. I mean, it wasn't super wide. Red Creek is not extremely wide, maybe 15, 20 feet max at its widest locations. It's very bouldery, a lot of rocks. That's why it makes for a really good technical trail to take your off-road vehicle on. But that water was just rushing down, and we weren't the only ones there. There's a few other people playing or just hanging out where we were, and we moved everything off to the side just to get out of the water's way. And it was flowing so fast. It was all muddy. Right where we were sitting, it kind of dipped and went up into the river. It was kind of like a river bank right there, but it was so strong it was digging up the soil, the silt that was all deposited right there. And you could hear like boulders in the water, just rubbing up, hitting each other. It was so strong. When it went into the Verde River, it kind of stopped the main flow of the Verde River. You could almost see it flowing back a little bit upstream. Wherever it was raining and wherever all that water did come from, we realized right then, it's like it doesn't have to be raining where you are for you to witness a flash flood. Just the lay of the land, where everything is, how much rain is falling, the rates at which the soil can absorb the water, all that plays into as a factor. And that night, because of that, the trail we came in on was now just inundated with water. We were basically trapped. We were stranded. There was no other way out of there. And there was no cell service. A couple of people in our groups, or everyone in the group had a CB radio to kind of keep in communication with the group while you're on the trail, but a couple of them had ham radios or amateur radios, which can do a lot better job. They can transmit on different frequencies with a lot more power, and they can reach out a lot further. And a couple of those guys drove up to some high points in the terrain. We were kind of in a very mountainous area. We were kind of in a little ravine or canyon where the creek bed was, and he drove up in his Jeep onto a high point. This was my friend Dave, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. And he was able to transmit out to a repeater on one of the mountains that overlooked the valley, the Phoenix, the Valley of the Sun. And he was able to get in touch with somebody there and could tell him our situation. And somebody who had access to cell service or phone service. And to me, that's when I realized, wow, that is so valuable. I have to have that. And that's what got me into wanting to get a ham radio and to get my ham radio license, my amateur license, and be able to talk. Because back then, we didn't have satellite communicators like the Garmin InReach or Spot or anything like that. Or if it was out, it was in its very infant stages. And this just seemed like the way to go. I was hooked right then and there. And they were able to reach out to a lot of people. The people we're able to contact were able to call, our loved ones, our friends, or whatever, and tell them, hey, they're stuck. We don't know how long it'll be, but everyone's okay. Don't need to worry. We're just gonna, camp like we planned to. I think we might have planned to be there 2 nights. I don't remember if it was a 1-night or 2-night trip that was originally planned, but we only stayed out there 1 night. We stayed out there. The water eventually did recede, and we're able to drive out, although the creek was swollen. There was the water was much deeper driving out, and we had no idea if we were gonna get out. But next morning came. I remember I didn't sleep very well that night because you could still hear the water in the creek all night, and I just kept thinking, what if another wall of water comes rushing down that and floods like the whole camp? We were kind of camped on a little bit higher ground, but it wasn't all that much higher, maybe like 5-6 feet higher than the creek bed, and kind of away from the creek as much as possible. But it made me realize, man, you never know. Nature is unpredictable. Nature throws you a curveball when you least expect it, and something you never even thought could happen can happen. I really learned that day to respect nature and to always expect the unexpected. You just never know. And it was an eye-opening experience for me, humbling experience, but we did make it out. I actually learned that how off-road capable my Jeep was in stock form, because we drove through some pretty deep water. We had water over my hood, no snorkel, nothing like that, and the Jeep did great. Nobody got permanently stuck. There were people that had harder times than others, but we got everyone out of there. There was a group of probably I think 8 or 9 vehicles, I want to say. But we made it out, and when everyone made it out safe, it was like, that was awesome. We witnessed something not everyone gets to see, like a flash flood happening in a remote area that nobody in town, unless you were out in that remote area, would have seen. It's like we're getting to know some of Mother Nature's secrets, and you felt more intimate. I don't know. It was great. It hooked me on the whole off-roading and camping. I just wanted to go camping again. I wanted to go different. Now it taught me. I was like, I'm not going to camp in a creek bed or a river bed ever again, or unless there's just absolutely no rain in the forecast, like no rain for 1,000 miles, and especially not during monsoon season in the desert. Things you can do to help mitigate your chances of being stuck in a flash flood would be to monitor the weather. It's a good idea to have a NOAA weather radio or a device that can monitor the NOAA weather radio frequencies, such as a ham radio, or some CB radios have them programmed in, as well as GMRS radios. Know the terrain you're in. Get up-to-the-minute forecasts on a device such as the Garmin InReach. I can get forecasts in the middle of nowhere. It won't necessarily get watches and warnings, but it'll let you know if your trip was dry and now there's rain coming up. So, well, guys, that was a look back at the Red Creek flash flood of September of 2007 on my first ever camping trip out in Arizona. What a memorable one it was. It really got me hooked on the hobby of off-roading and camping, but it was a very stark introduction to the power of Mother Nature and the power of water, which I've seen a lot more of recently and on such a larger scale with the floods here in the hill country of Texas in 2025. But I couldn't help but think back to this moment in time when I first witnessed the flash flooding in Red Creek. The concepts are the same, maybe on a much smaller scale, but this is how hydrology works. This is how physics and geography and topology all play together to create what can be a disastrous event. So just okay. So yeah, always respect Mother Nature, but by all means, get out and enjoy the great outdoors as well. Anyway, everybody, I hope you got something out of this. If you did, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.